All rise. Steve, will you lead us in the invocation?
I would. Lord, we thank you for the privilege we have to come to you in prayer, and thank you for these men and women that gather together to conduct the business of the church. The business of the city. We would pray, Lord, that you would be with us, help us to make wise decisions, help us in everything we do. When we make decisions, we glorify you, Lord, and follow the lead that you've given us. Thank you again for everyone that's here. Help us in all we do. I think we ask it all. Amen.
Rick, would you lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Clerk Faulkner, will you have the roll call, please?
Steve Arnott.
Here.
Mike Scipio. Doug Fleshman.
Here.
Greg Hudson.
Here.
Greg Wolf.
Here.
Connie Thompson. Jim Hughes.
Here.
Linda Wallace.
I'm here.
The quorum being present, I declare the special meeting of the Dunbar City Council in order, June 24th, 2020, 10 a.m. Before we get started, I wanted to thank Councilman Flashman for going to the far reaches of Ohio to retrieve the components for our portable sprinkle park, and they're down at the rec center now, and we're getting, the fire department's working on getting some hoses fabricated to hook the meter to the fire hydrant, so hopefully by this time next week we ought to be in operation, ready to start sprinkling some kids. Thank you for donating your time, sir.
Thank you.
Glad I could do it. Had a good trip, except my partner, I just couldn't get any conversation out of it. Moss.
Okay. So the first item on our agenda is a resolution accepting certification for canvassers.
I'm assuming that it did pass this morning. They met at 8 o'clock. Commissioners did. Don't have the resolution. For that reason. So we just want a resolution to certify that the Board of Canvassers of the Kanawha County, state of West Virginia, it was done on to this morning at June 24th, 2020 election. Yeah, when that time I got on there is when I got to work, it was over with, so I don't know what was done, but I did know they was gonna have to election, they did win an election. And,
Yeah, the only three items under contest were two magistrate seats and a recount for St. Albans. Those are the only items under contest.
so,
I will move that we accept their canvassing results.
and when I get them, I'll get a copy of it and give it to everybody, probably by next council meeting. I'll have it from them.
I second.
There's been a motion by Councilman Arnott to accept the certification of the Board of Canvassers of Kanawha, County of Kanawha, and State of West Virginia for the June 9, 2020 election. Seconded by Councilwoman August. Any comments, questions, clarifications? Being none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions, none. Motion carries. Okay, the next item on the agenda is our renewal of our our insurance for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. And we have Mr. Tripp King and Ms. Janet Buckley from Commercial Insurance. They're here to discuss what they have come up with a insurance proposal for this year. As council's aware, they've been our carrier for several years, and we've had very good success with them. The insurer that we had dropped us this year in One Beacon due to several issues with outstanding litigations and a major accident that we had. So anyway, we were dropped. We've been searching for alternatives to fill that gap. We do have their proposal, and we also have a proposal from Travelers Insurance. They'll be here probably about 10:45 to present what they have to present. But the short and long of it is, I think they've done an excellent job trying to fill the gap in what we had when One Beacon dropped us. So with that, I'll leave it to them to present what they found, the positives and the negatives, and where we're going to go from there.
Thank you all for having us today. I know it's different circumstances, but Jan and I are, again, tickled to kind of be here. It's one of our first meeting since all this has actually taken place. So it's kind of nice to see faces and be in person this time. But I did want to just kind of preface and talk a little bit about the account. You know, Jan and I have been working on this account for 20 plus years. It's obviously an account that's very near and dear to our heart just because of relationships we've had over the years. Different council people, different mayors, everybody going through. We've always felt like we've really worked well and hard for the city. And that having been said, you know, in our industry, especially with public sector, it is kind of a revolving market. It's interesting because you're going to have carriers that come in. I mean, over the past, I want to say 20 plus years, you guys have probably had 4 or 5 different carriers with us just because carriers they move into the state, they move out of the state. They're strong for this period of time. They're not as strong for another period of time. And that's unfortunately just the nature of the beast, especially with public sector. I mean, we've been sitting tight for the past probably 7 years with One Beacon, and we've always had One Beacon, and then kind of the fallback was Brim. And we kind of never want to have to go back into Brim if we don't have to. But, you know, sometimes we get cases where the losses are just so extreme that that's where we have to go. That having been said, I'm actually really happy to say that my boss, the president of our agency, and Janet have been working for the last 3 or 4 years to try to broaden that marketplace, which is going to help, obviously, all of our accounts by having a competitive market. And again, any type of competition always drives better pricing. So we have actually been working on now 3 new contracts, which for the first time, I would say in my 14 years, we have 4 contracts outside of Brim that do public sector. And that's fantastic because, again, we get to kind of go and explore the marketplace, see what people are good at, see what maybe they're not as good at. And when your all's account came up this year, I'll tell you, we've had a lot of conversations with underwriters, carriers, discussing kind of the way that we felt that we could make this work. And, you know, there's no question we look at the driving factor as far as what happened with One Beacon. You know, 16 and 17, we had a 506% loss ratio with automobile alone. So, I mean, we got a couple of years before that's going to drop off. Everything stays on our account for 5 years. And after that 5th year, you see that those losses drop off. And when the underwriter goes back to the drawing board, they no longer have to put that into the equation as far as doing, you know, really the cost benefit of writing your account. And so recently, as in the past 3 years, and I'll say kind of just not trying to speak for One Beacon, but what I've heard is that, you know, their concern has been law enforcement. We've got 12 law enforcement claims over the past few years. Not all of them were paid. Not all of them, you know, are even closed at this point. Many of them are still pending. But that does kind of raise a red flag. I mean, it's something where these underwriters are going, okay, well, You know, the big one really hasn't hit. We're at 101% just in the professional liability alone, which is your law enforcement, and most of them are excessive force. And I understand, wholeheartedly that the people of your all's police force are put in a very difficult position. Just like what you were talking earlier about the body cams. That is almost an impossible job to do perfectly. And so sometimes things just happen. And that's why we have insurance to begin with. And so it's one of those things that I look at and I say, there's probably two things in this city, and many cities have the same issue, is we have two things that are going to be a long-term problem because they're kind of just things that we can't avoid. Automobile claims, there's always going to be fender benders. If we go get in a police chase, something might happen. That's why we have insurance. Law enforcement liability has been brutal these past 3 or 4 years. I mean, it depends on almost what county you're in and how they handle it. The judges are very plaintiff friendly, is the way I would put that. So I feel for your officers and your force, because I think that that's something that they're trying to do the best they can, and it's a tough job. So that having been said, what we were trying to do this year was piece it together in a way that made sense to an underwriter. They weren't, again, they're used to having automobile claims. That's something that's just kind of a common denominator with writing any city. You have a big enough fleet of vehicles, that's going to happen. But what I've noticed is they were kind of all a little bit apprehensive about the law enforcement. So what we did was we kind of devised a plan this year, and I want to kind of put a perspective of how we do this with other accounts, because I think it makes a lot of sense if you look at it this way. When I write a car dealership, I put the entire fleet of vehicles that's out there in their parking lot on a whole separate policy as I do the package for their property, for me walking in there and slipping and falling, or there being any type of claim where, there's water damage or something like that, because those claims are a lot less likely than what could possibly be very much an act of God in a hailstorm, and it could knock out their entire fleet. And so I use that kind of analogy with you all because I looked at it this year and kind of came up with a plan and said, you know what if we carve out the law enforcement? Well, there's something that's a common problem recently, and we try to put it on its own standalone policy, and then go back to the underwriting companies and underwriters and say, hey, look at it this way. And what it did was it opened up a lot of eyes as far as underwriters are concerned about how this could be done in a better way. And so Munich, the carrier that we're bringing to you, and it's their long name, American Family Home Insurance Company, Munich is what we use. It's like one beacon in the Sea Atlantic Specialty or something. They said, absolutely, that's a wonderful idea. We could carve out the law enforcement liability and then add that on a standalone policy, which I want to talk about the advantages of that. We're seeing high frequency in that type of professional liability. So by carving that out, one of the things that we're actually doing is putting ourselves in a position where, wishful thinking, we don't have these things moving forward. I hope we go 5 years clean. But in case we do, we now have a policy that's standalone that's covering just those types of claims, and it will never impact the package as a whole. So it's actually a very strategic move in the way that, so no longer will you have a law enforcement claim affect the overall package, because that's what the major expense, when we look down at it and say, yeah, $180,000 of our $296,000 premium is that package. So the fact that we could take out and carve out something that will no longer have an impact on the overall package, I think is a huge advantage. And so what we did this year is we took Munich from the package. I was really happy with where they came in. We saved about $9,000, and that's with them still considering the losses from law enforcement, because they still have to take those into consideration. They were on the policy before, but they're no longer, again, going to write law enforcement. So to have that be down, I was very happy with the way that they came in with the pricing. And then what we did was we took QBE, and QBE is a special underwriting company. We use them with a lot of different specialty lines. We're not the first city that we've done something like this with. We carved out the law enforcement liability and took, $33,000 and some change, and you take that into consideration with the COVID quote. And to be honest with you, I was tickled to death. If we look at the overall loss ratio for, 15 and 16, 35%, good year. 16, 17, 507%. 17, 18, 114%. 18, 19, 45%. 19, 20, 0. Unbelievable year. Something that honestly, you don't see that in the city very often. So what it's telling me is we're a couple years away from dropping off a huge chunk of our losses. But to have an overall increase from 284 to 296, I was tickled to death. I mean, I really felt like this was a great way of strategically putting together the program for you guys. And what I feel like there's some things that we definitely need to, I think, consider moving forward. I think we need to definitely get a COVID. I know the COVID thing has been interesting as far as getting people out here. A lot of people are scared to be on site, but I do think moving forward, we really need to dive into what COVID can give us for free. I mean, they're right here locally. They could come out and give some training classes. I think we need to use them and be strategic because we need more ammunition with one of these carriers saying, hey, here's what we've done to mitigate this risk moving forward. Here's what we've done proactively. And again, you can't do anything about things that just happen. That's why we have the insurance, but we can show that we're doing everything we can to ultimately mitigate the risk moving forward. And so I want to be able to use that as well as possibly some of the inside resources that we have. You know, we have inside HR, we have inside risk management consulting. I think that what we need to probably consider moving forward is to start kind of utilizing some of these resources. And so we have a better story to tell, because I will say, you know, we had to get really pretty, again, clever and strategic on this one. And I'm, again, so happy with the way it turned out. I think it's a wonderful program for the city. Again, with the losses that we have a $12,000 increase, I think was a very manageable increase for you all to be able to budget. I mean, the worst thing that Janet and I have in this industry is walking in and doing some sort of a renewal proposal where it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't budget for a $75,000 increase. And it puts you guys in a really tough position. You guys have a lot of things that you're trying to do, take care of the city. You need to change out vehicles. I understand. And it's something where we try really hard to, again, where the past few years where she and my boss have strategically put together these new programs, it has put a little bit of light into the fact that I think that we're going to have more competition moving forward. We're going to have more programs looking at it, and we're going to be able to do more things like this, which I think is going to be advantageous to all our cities and towns and counties. And so, you know, that having been said, I didn't know how detailed you wanted me to get into the program. I mean, we obviously need to do checks and balances as far as what the program is compared to the program we had before. You know, what the strengths, what the weaknesses are. I will tell you that Munich offers a very, very similar program to One Beacon. The big thing would obviously be is we would have a specialized program for just your law enforcement liability. But again, I think we will find that we'll be able to keep that package more consistent years to come by even having law enforcement liability claims because we carved that piece out. And I thought the pricing on the law enforcement was extremely fair, given the loss ratio. But again, it's kind of nice because we've got a new carrier coming in and they're saying, you know what, we want this. We feel like we can maybe help, you know, this city, you know, these types of things happen. And so I'm happy to answer any questions to you guys.
Can you go into a little bit of detail about American Family Home Insurance? We're not at all familiar with who they are. Are they an active entity in the state of West Virginia?
Yes. So they're active as far as we've actually moved quite a bit of business with them this year. This has been kind of our year where we've seen a trend of going with different carriers because, you know, sometimes a book doesn't perform as well. If you imagine with One Beacon, you know, when they are paying out 500% loss ratios to a city, and then they've got another city nearby, they're paying out, you know, over 100% loss ratio, they're losing money. And so, Munich, Zurich, Euclid, 3 carriers that we now signed contracts with, absolutely, we've been seeing a lot of our cities move to these carriers. They've offered great, again, comprehensive programs, very good pricing, very competitive. They're an A+ rated carrier, so just kind of give you an understanding of what we do with commercial insurance. We don't allow ourselves to do business with anybody under an A-rated carrier. We want them to be extremely financially strong. You know, we stay up to this stuff on a weekly basis of how strong they are financially because we can't have a company going under and know that they're going to be out there paying claims. So you're talking the highest rating carriers that you can get. And so, and we all know in COVA, they were obviously Brick Street before. I mean, just to put in perspective, they're a wonderful carrier and they're an A-. but it's just because they're smaller. They're right here in the state of West Virginia. We're not talking about a global or a national type carrier. In Cova now, where they paired up with Motors Mutual up out of Ohio, they're now kind of a regional carrier. So they're a good rated carrier, but even that carrier does extremely well. And obviously a huge support of our local economics and everything here. Also, right here for us to be able to have claims adjusting and everything, right here, 20 minutes away. We love being able to use them, but putting kind of peace of mind, yeah, they're an A+ rated carrier, very strong financially, have been taking over several of our public sector accounts, and I believe I've got an account just down the road that just moved. So, and that was as of this past week. So they are aggressive, and I feel like, Janet always tells me, I've been doing this again with her for many years, and she always says, this business is so cyclical. You're going to find that these carriers are going to come in for 4, 5, 6 years, and all of a sudden, if they make money, great, they're going to stick around a little longer. But if they don't make money, they're going to probably be out. And so they're always working to find us new markets and have new contracts, because that's our job, is to make it so we can put you guys in a position where we're not getting astronomical increases. And so it's funny because I've now gone through 2 cycles of it where we were, I think, with PEA Trident, and then now with One Beacon, and now here we are with the opportunity to go with Munich and PPE carved out the law enforcement liability. And so I do believe, and we've always kept you all through this. I mean, I know we've had a great working relationship, but I also think that that's a testament to how we have always, one, gone to bat for the city, but also find a way to keep pricing consistent. We're not going to be the carrier that comes in and saves $50,000 because the next year that's not a fair market value. It's going to go right back up. Everybody, if you go out there and you test the waters, I can tell you, I can see it, I can give you examples. The city of Bluefield, it's $100,000 off the bottom line. Next year it's an $80,000 increase. That's not a way to budget a city. And so I have found that, I do understand it's a $12,000 increase, and every little bit right now helps, but I do believe that's a very fair market value for your all's account right now, given the loss ratio. So that we were tickled to death when we were able to actually get the bottom line, and felt like it was a very manageable increase. Do you want to throw anything in on Munich, or you want me to?
Considering the brand quote that we got, you might mention
Yeah, I mean,
that. State Board of Risk.
just to put in perspective, I mean, off the wall this was, the State Board of Risk was $540,000. I mean, and there's, again, what I call it, it's like a catch-all. If you bounce down to the standard marketplace, you're going to fall back into brand. AIG does their claims, God love them, because they do help us on a lot of accounts that don't have anywhere to go. And once you're in, you're sucked in, and it's almost impossible to get back out, because AIG is so just, we don't care, we're going to pay the claim and make it go away, versus at least fighting it in some sense. And so, as much as we love Brown, it's our state program, and it's helped us for many years with accounts that are in a really bad position. We do anything we can to keep you out of there. And so that's, again, where we kind of coming up with this plan, it made us realize, and we've got to make sure that we're strategic enough with the underwriter. They feel comfortable with writing this account. And that was the only thing. Interestingly enough, with a huge automobile loss ratio, they didn't say a word to us about that, because that's a common thing. The law enforcement, you don't want to, they would rather see one law enforcement claim for $1 million than 12 of them for, maybe little money, or just going into litigation. Because that's their belief is that the big one's coming. I mean, frequency, we always say it in workers' comp, frequency is the driving factor of everyone, not severity. They'd rather see you pay, $100,000 out to some employee that hurts themselves than 10 of them that are, paper cuts. Because they believe that frequency is going to drive severity down the road. So, I did want to also point out that we had an option, section 2, past the final premium page. We actually have the marketing summary, and I did want to point out that we can buy up limits with QBE. It's been about $4,500, $4,300 and purchase a 1-3 limit, meaning $1 million per occurrence, $3 million aggregate. So if you wanted to buy up, we're happy to do that. history tells us we haven't really dipped into the $1 million type claims and with law enforcement liability, but we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We want to make sure that we're showing you an option, just to give you an optional aggregate. So in case we did have that one monstrosity of a claim, we then needed to have more aggregate limits, we could buy it up. And honestly, I think that's a pretty fair price for $5,000 for $4,500. I would probably buy that because I think, you know, from our frequency in law enforcement alone, I'm looking at it and thinking, well, what if the big one happens? We need to be prepared, and we don't want to exhaust our total limit from one large law enforcement liability claim. But I did want to just point that out. That's an option, not included in the pricing. You'll see the difference in the pricing from the 11013.
$6,433.84.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I did not do the math. 33,627.
So just a question, the overall package then, so they're the family home within the law enforcement's QBE, and then code is handling workers' comp.
Yes, sir. Exactly. Yeah, so total overall increase of just a shade under 12 grand.
It's 11,822.07.
Yeah. Any other questions? Anything I can go over with you all?
And there will be a change on non-law enforcement. It's still 25,000 deductible on lawsuits, but law enforcement is 50.
Correct. That's exactly right. And that's QBE alone. You're right.
And that stays the same even with bump up to 1.3.
Exactly.
Okay, on your page, well, it's not numbered.
Yeah, that marketing summary page, you're exactly right. Right. And I do want to point out, I mean, just some things that I, you know, find important. I mean, look at the deductibles, look at property on the Munich proposal. $1,000 property, we were still always at 25. Weren't we, Janet? One big, I think we're at 2,500. Very standard, we have $2,500 deductible. So I kind of like Munich programs in some sense. You know, $1,000 on the end of the marine, any piece of equipment we had out there, $1,000 deductible. No liability deductible. So we have a GL slip and fall incident. I'm walking up on your curb and I fall and I sue the city. No GL deductible. So that's a nice little feature of it. Abuse and molestation. I want to talk about this because I do find it really important. In my career, the number one thing I've always tried to do is I don't want to talk about anybody else or anybody in the competition. I think that's just a terrible way to go about it. But what I would encourage you all to look at is abuse and molestation coverage. A lot of times in our competition, it's not covered for ages of 18 and over, at the end. And so, just to put it in perspective, it's a very odd clause, an odd exclusion. We don't have that exclusion. And so, again, it's got a big what if type claim, but if we had an abuse and molestation claim, we don't have any type of exclusion of the age of where it can apply. And so, again, I'm not ever speaking as if I know everything. We've seen this, and the tendency has been that there's an exclusion there. So,
And sometimes they'll have supplement for sexual abuse, say 250,000, not your full call.
versus our team. And again, I just want to reinforce the fact that one thing that I feel like it's an advantage to Janet and myself being able to have it in our office, but also I want to make sure to stress how much I feel like it could be an advantage to you all. You know, every city, for the most part, that's a bigger city, has their city attorneys. I mean, there's no question that that's a pretty tedious task as well, as far as handling all the things that might be coming, contracts, you know, types of cases, you know, we have to make somebody. We have 3 in-house attorneys. One of them specializes in hiring, firing, contracts, you know, new employee applications, anything. Please, you can bounce this stuff off of us. It's one of the features that we have that nobody else has. It's a really wonderful thing to have. And I can say, for me, it makes my job so much easier that I can pass it from one to an attorney in-house to try to answer a question that I can't answer. And I mean, even if I could answer, I know the answer, I'm not going to answer it because I don't want to answer it. This is a legal question. So just know that we have a lot of resources in that regard as well. If you guys are ever having questions about a site or, you know, something that's up and coming, know that we have a person that can come out and do a survey.
person that can come out and look at a piece of property and describe the risks involved with the property. I don't think it's utilized enough. I stress it. I mean, I know we've talked about it. I mean, Tom, you're probably laughing for this year in and year out, but I do always stress it because it's used so much in certain cities, and then some don't use it at all. And I think it's such a wasted asset of ours sometimes. And so I do want to make sure you guys always know that, even if your city attorney wants to bounce something off of our attorney, I mean, the two heads are going to be better than one in that regard. It's going to be important for them to kind of have a better understanding. So what we're seeing more and more are frivolous lawsuits, absolutely frivolous lawsuits all over the place right now. Employment practices, liability, sexual harassment, discrimination, wrongful termination cases, they're happening all over the place, and they're bogus, absolutely bogus. I'm not saying there aren't cases where they're very valid, but most of the time, they're bogus. And I will tell you, our employment lawyer in-house, she knows the ins and outs. She defended, she worked for Full Power Claim and defended in the cities. That's all she did, so she was one of the good people. And we don't normally say that about our attorneys, but she was always a defense attorney and defended our cities. So when we hired her up, we were like, this is wonderful. She understands the law, she understands the contract, she understands what needs to be done in order to even, maybe terminate somebody or deal with a case that might be something like that. So that's another thing, again, I want to make sure I always talk about them because they're, priceless to us. And then, just going back to in COVA, I want to go make sure I talk about them because, I know we've got a name change, but they have done exceptionally well for us this year, especially. I'll tell you, we have seen them, and I don't know if it's because they've grown financially where that merger happened with Motors Mutual and now they're in COVA versus Bridge Street, but they have been so good with pricing and so aggressive that they've actually really helped us out on several accounts that hasn't had really good performance. And so, one of the greatest things I could tell you to have is have that, those adjusters and everybody being right here local. They understand the state of West Virginia, they understand our laws. So when we have work-related claims, it's important to have somebody that understands West Virginia law and West Virginia litigation. And I can't stress that enough because, again, where we're seeing more and more of these cases, people taking advantage of the work comp system. So they're definitely, I got a leg injury while I'm in Milford for 2 years. It's just, you're seeing them up on the roof doing the tile or shingles the next day. But that's just kind of what happens right now. And we're in a little bit of a sad place. And so I can't stress enough about having a carrier that's local for work-related claims because they've seen it, they understand our litigation, they understand our laws, they understand our judicial system, and they just do a fantastic job. So I just want to point that out because, again, a lot of people are saying to me, who's in COVA, they haven't gotten the message or whatever about the merger. But it's still, they're right here at home, right in Charleston. People are, satellite offices all over. Dunbar's got a satellite office. So I really like, having in COVA. And to be honest with you, we could have marketed the workers' comp. I just feel like they've done such an exceptional job for us. To me, by going to some program out in the Midwest that doesn't really understand our laws, I don't care if we save $1,000, I'd be the first one to stand in front of you and say, let's not do this. Let's go with people that understand, who we are and where we are. So, and that's, again, pretty much the gist of it. And I'm happy to talk about any losses if you guys are kind of wondering when I'm throwing up the stats. I'm not just kind of spewing out numbers. I've actually got a huge, loss ratio breakdown of every type of line of account. So your automobile, your property, your general liability, your professional liability. I've got where it breaks it down by year, by line of coverage, and you can kind of see what we were working with. So again, you've got to kind of think outside the box to manage this renewal this year. But when you kind of look at the losses, this was a year we had to be very strategic. But again, we love working with you all, and we hope we get to continue to work with you all. We go really hard at that for you all, and we appreciate you guys.
You mentioned you've sold American Family Home to a few others. Of course, you obviously can't say names, but has any municipalities transferred them so far?
Yes. So,
and I'm not asking good.
No, but just right down the road, we just had one as of last week. I could say there have been, more than a handful of mine that have transferred in just the 7-1 period. I've got a lot more coming up, 8-1, 9-1, and 10-1. This is obviously our big stressful time of year. So you got, I think we have 167 accounts that we're doing right now as far as public entities. It's kind of crazy period of time. But I myself have moved several, and one of your neighboring cities, is a bigger city, just moved to Munich, and they were extremely happy. It was, and honestly, one beacon wasn't non-renewing, it was something where it's just competition. And that happens sometimes. Again, we're not trying to move business away from our carriers. We love the relationships we have, but like I said before, sometimes there's just a period of time where somebody comes in and they're just more competitive, and then they offer great programs as well.
And we also, on our listing, I'm assuming we have some vehicles listed in here that I don't think are on the road any longer and things. Would that come down a little bit if we clean that list up?
Absolutely, that'd be huge, extremely helpful, and honestly, that's something where
There's 3 chargers on here. I think we only have 1 charger left.
Right.
So it is. It was 1966.
That's one down, bingo bill.
We have to go.
You know, we had
Oh, yeah, we have an antique.
You should, yeah, you do. It's one of the list was great.
Okay.
I also want to add this, so I appreciate it, Councilman
Oh, we
Hudson.
have to insure.
You actually
I think
kind
you give it to
of,
us.
brought something to my attention when you were talking about the auto, and something I really want to stress as well is one of the nice features, and you guys have this with one beacon, you're also gonna have with Munich, is we don't do a midterm auto audit. You can take off 4 vehicles and add 15, you're not getting charged for it. Every other carrier does. And so that's huge, because you think about $2,000, $3,000 for adding a vehicle every time throughout the year, you're not getting charged.
But if we take these
Our
off
competition does.
prior to 7
Prior,
months,
okay.
Yeah.
adjust the premium.
So we can't stress enough how nice it would be to get them all. Because then adding the strategic way, I'll tell you.
How the book from last time,
Could be.
I can point you to.
because I usually call,
Do it
Yeah, but
and get them off.
strategic way.
We have to do one.
Everything, not everything, but you know, the ones that they know are coming off, they will remove them all right before 7/1, save all the money at the renewal, and then 15 days later, you'll buy, 15 new fleet. So it's, I mean, it's kind of a trick of the trade there. I mean, I always say, hey, use it if you've got it. I
We
mean,
don't have the money to go buy.
well, hopefully this doesn't put you in a position where at least you can't go get what you need when you need it, but, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that, again, yes, we definitely reduce the cost. Vehicles can range from, $1,000 to $2,500, and then obviously we get into fire trucks and fancy, souped up these vehicles that can be even more. So. Anything else?
Any other questions for them? Presentation, appreciate it.
Thank you all so much.
One beacon or travelers is gonna be here at either 10:45 or 11. They're trying to be here at 10:45. If you all wanna linger around and wait until they get finished, if you wanna come back and talk to us after that, you're perfectly welcome to do that.
We're happy to just offer our service. I'm happy to compare and contrast anything. So if you want, I mean, and again, I'm 100%, I'm trying to do what's right for the city. So I'm gonna tell you the things that are positives and negatives. So if it's something where you have questions, you wanna know how it applies to compare to ours, I'm happy to do that. We can create a nice big spreadsheet on how detailed you wanna go, but we can do that for you if you need it.
Well, I think you all done a great job as far as putting the package together and the numbers, and it's pretty easy to follow. And I think it was fairly easy for us to compare it with travelers, and so.
Thank you for staying with us. It's a pretty bad year.
No, again, we want what's best for the city, and, I mean, I'll tell you, Janet has been, I mean, whatever you want to call it, my own one for however long. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to work with her and then start helping the book after a point where she maybe wasn't going on the road as much. And I'll tell you, it means almost more to me, the accounts that she's had for all these years, because I want it for her. I mean, I go and do my own thing around the state, but at the same time, she's had such long-lasting relationships, it's
They're
unbelievable.
really light accounts.
Yeah. I'll be the first one to say that, so. I just live chatterbox, so she just lets me go.
And I will say, being the one who has to work with the insurance, they have been great to work with. I mean, the associates with you guys are always right on and calling me back.
And you got our 24/7, we actually have,
Yeah.
Thanks.
Of course, we got one of the old girls that lives here in Dunbar.
Right.
She's a neighbor down on.
One,
or something like
Down on Second Street there.
and they definitely talk about it too. It's funny when you get in-house and everybody starts talking about where they're from, and They're like, how long do we have to see at Dunbar? That's where I live, and I know that they've got good insurance. Oh, I don't know if that's a good thing. I wouldn't like everybody knowing the insurance,
Yeah,
but
but they have been good to work with as far as,
I live in Cross Lane, so y'all should annex Cross Lane.
Cross Lanes doesn't want to be.
No more headaches.
I'd say they would have been incorporated a long time ago if they wanted to be incorporated.
Yeah, they fight it, yeah.
Do you all want to request that they hang around for a little bit or be available by phone? And then after we finish the travelers, interview, in case we have some questions, we want them to clarify, is that y'all think?
Do you want us to call you back at about 11:30 or?
we were 15 minutes down the road. We could come back whenever you want us. I
do
mean,
you think it'll take?
I got dressed today. I'm ready to go. So first day in a long time.
Java Zooms.
Exactly. I was always wearing a nice tie in Zoom. Everybody thought I was cool.
I'd make that request if they would please, either hang around or.
Well, they can give us
Yeah,
a
we'll
cell
come
phone
back
number,
to
we
us. Okay.
can put them on the matching box.
They may not be here very long, I mean, you know,
Well, and just know.
Have they been
I'll
here
come right
once
back.
before, done a presentation?
with,
What's your-
with the mayor and I.
Yeah, okay.
What's your cell phone
So
number?
I'm 304.
Well, wait a minute, you're live right now.
Oh.
wait.
I don't know that they come that way.
Okay, so once we, have that interview, we'll, give you a call, and if we have any
It
questions.
may not be very, you know, 20 minutes maybe. If-
Yeah,
I might just,
Right,
are you guys, are some of your places still serving? Or open to serve now?
McDonald's is.
I wouldn't mind eating is what I'm thinking.
Wendy's,
Those
McDonald's,
are
Los Agaves?
Yes.
Okay. I might do something like that, get a bite.
they're not open at 10:45, are they?
I didn't have breakfast.
What time is it?
Just look.
yeah, Tudor's in them are,
Okay.
Tudor's over there in
Oh,
there.
yes.
Yes,
Might roll me back in here, but I'll.
yes.
Okay.
Tudor's is open now?
We'll have a taco down in about 3 months.
You can
It's
go
all
inside,
good.
yeah.
Oh, man.
Okay,
Yes, you can go inside.
I have a,
Nothing like a
can I have a
burrito.
motion that we go into recess until the, next group comes in?
So moved.
All right, you'll put us on
Second.
hold.
Thank you all.
We'll go back on the record with the interview for the presentation of Chris Nicely and Dave Hall, sorry. Yes, have a motion.
I'll make the motion to come out of recess.
Second.
Okay, we're back on track again, so we're back on order, and now we'll have a presentation for the insurance package for the year 2020, 2021 by Chris Nicely and Dave Stacy of Travelers Insurance. Gentlemen, my Lord, yours.
We appreciate the opportunity to bid on the city's insurance. It's been a long, long time. I'm Dave Stacy, this is Chris Nicely, and I manage the Travelers Public Entity Program in West Virginia. I've been doing this 26 years. I actually used to work with Ms. Buckley, who just saw it here with the trip. I worked in commercial from 1997 to 2008, working on public entities. And one of the reasons I left was competing against this Travelers program. The program's been in West Virginia since 1994. God had commissions doing it since 1984. We've got several cities that need the program. For 20 plus years, there's just been a lot of companies, one big commercial last year, prior to that, there were 4 others. But I just wanted to give you the intro in USI. We originally go back to McDonough Caper, the Gatsby started, we changed names from Employa, then Wells Fargo Insurance, now we're called USI, based out of New York, the 3rd largest broker in the country. What we're really here to talk about the difference between what Travelers provides versus, I think the newest carrier, Sure Partners is introducing is a unit program, American homeowners, something like that. So before Chris goes through the proposal, I would just like to say that the Travelers claims handling, risk control are handled here in Charleston. That's one of the reasons they've been able to stay here without ever leaving. It's because they know that the West Virginia judicial can use all the claim or validating or every other company. It's all done from afar. It's done together. I don't know about the new carrier unit. I know they don't have one here. That's really been one of the reasons that we're able to retain our accounts. Thanks to technology, we saw Lewis and sort of cloud comments. I can say the Travelers program, our account retention is 96%. Over the last 2 years, we've taken 14 accounts from the other company. We lost 1. There's often rates people like to say, well, you're going to get us in low ball, you're going to ratchet up the premium. The sandbox in West Virginia is too small. We don't do that, and we frankly don't do that. That's one of the reasons we have so many loyal clients here because we are the largest provider of insurance. And one thing, Travelers really isn't for everyone. There are some accounts that we look at, we just can't get quote. We want to make sure that we're providing good risk. We want to make sure the controls are in place. And before we provide a quote, we had to do a risk control inspection, so we just want to make sure we're getting it handled. The last thing we want to do, particularly in this legal climate right now, law enforcement, is to go offering $1 million limits of liability because we know police officers can get a lot more scrutiny. And I understand that. My father was retired state police, my uncle is as well. My older brother is actually a defense lawyer that defends law enforcement. So pretty well knowledge of what challenges are. But having said that, I will let Chris go.
Council, Mayor, thank you for having us. Unfortunately, Mayor Cunningham and Connie, all the time you stay with us, we've had multiple meetings going through this. And that is a testament to our due diligence, Travelers' due diligence as well, as how they really hone in on the risk and make sure they know exactly what they're writing, controls are in place, implementations, and also how we can help to better that, increase the safety culture over the years. As Dave mentioned before we go through the post, everything on Travelers is local. We have an office down here in Charleston, 20 minutes away. We were watching the previous presentation there. In Cova, absolutely right, they're a great company, Brick Street. They are local as well. And all the things that Tripp mentioned about how that helps with the legal environment, knowing and being here local, having boots on the ground, so to speak, that is all well and good under workers' comp. On Travelers, it's every single mile you have that. So, going into the proposal, you folks stop me at any point in time. I'm kind of going to go through this very quickly. I understand you probably already reviewed it. I know, Mayor, you folks have already reviewed it, but any questions you folks have at any point in time, please let us know. I'm going to flip through here. We'll start at page 6. This is the schedule of locations. This is apples to apples locations, everything that was provided for the Aspiring program. If anything is incorrect or there's been some changes over the last few days, you guys have added to the properties, so there's no change in the time. Page 7 shows the total blanket personal property limit. Travelers reviewed all of these locations and found out that for their valuations of the city's properties were somewhat underinsured. Now, we're showing an $8.6 million blanket limit where the Aspiring program was 2.7, I believe. And that's neither here nor there. If you folks are steadfast and we believe this is what they're valued at, we can get that drop back down to save some premium off of our program. If you want to drop it back down to around the $3 million limit or so, again, we're about 3 times higher. That should result in about a 2/3 reduction in your overall property. We can argue for that. We always like to make sure that you're insured for true, proper value. Continually, things update, inflation, and again, we want to make sure that everything's proper in the event of a claim. Going through here, pages 7 through pages 20 is just a more intense breakdown of how that limit is derived per location. There's a few items there that travelers saw were underinsured. Mainly, it's the larger, more prominent buildings, the police station, town hall, things like that, fire station. But you can skip over all those unless you folks have any questions about a specific individual location limit. One other thing I want to throw out there, and I'm not sure if Munich is providing this, I know when Beacon did not previously, we are offering broad form flood coverage in specific locations, as well as potential earthquake coverage in specific locations as well. Pretty far-fetched, earthquakes really don't happen here. Flooding, not too much of an issue, but it's again, a value-added inclusive coverage that you weren't getting before, and there's a limited premium charge for that. It's not like you remove it, it's going to take $5,000 off. It's included in our forms. As well as all of page 21, you see all the deluxe property form coverages. These are all your enhancement coverages and various things other than just, hey, here's property damage, tree fell on property, here's your claim. Other things that might come into play there as far as outdoor property, extra expenses, claims data expenses, special supplement for employee tools, things of that nature. This is all very standard for travelers. Moving over to page 24, offering a $100,000 crime limit with a $2,500 per claim retention. I know that there was a embezzlement claim there years ago. It resulted in a $50,000 payout. So again, you have coverage there. We don't see in municipalities, we don't see too much higher than that is necessary. However, if you guys want to increase the limits, you can always buy up any limits that you may feel necessary. Crime coverage is extremely cheap. Page 25 is the inland marine schedule. Travelers breaks this down. Inland marine is going to be your mobile, any kind of mobile equipment that's not a licensed vehicle for road use, choppers, mowers, backhoes, utility vehicles, stuff like that. Our limit matches the Aspiring program, so there will be no changes there. We provided a breakdown as far as all the schedules. Connie provided those to us, and if there is again any changes you see there, new tractor was added, got rid of an old one, for instance. We can always make that accommodation for you to remove or add anything at any point in time. Inland marine carries $1,000 deductible, pretty standard. General liability, page 27, $1 million, $2 million limit. That's pretty standard. I'm sure that's what your community is being provided, somewhat very similar to that. We do have an abuse and molestation offense sub-limit of $100,000. Tripp did mention only abuse and molestation. To be cognizant of that some carriers do not consider claims over 18 years of age. The travelers, that is not true. Abuse and molestation is considered for 18 and under for minors. However, if there is a similar act alleged against an adult, anybody above 18, then that is just coded as it's not coded as the abuse sublimit that would fall under the main general liability. Okay, so there's coverage there either way.
Yeah, so there's no shortcoming.
No shortcoming at all. Page 28, this is really get down to the nitty-gritty. As I'm sure you guys have spoke ad nauseum, law enforcement is the issue. I'm going to go through a couple, some analysis that I've done. Again, we had iteration for all these years, so I can't provide you with a nice breakdown line by line, but I did do a thorough analysis of this. Had 11 law enforcement claims over the last 5 years. It's an average of 2.2 per year. That's fairly higher than the average in the state and the average nationally. You have a total of 326,000 paid claims over the last 5. The average is only about $29,000 though. So jumping from a $25,000 deductible expiring to a $50K now, which I'm sure that's what they're providing you with. I cannot see any carrier in this legal environment, especially in West Virginia, offering for your all's account anything lower than a $50,000 deductible. If I'm wrong, correct me, please. So the 50K will abolish that going forward, because again, the average is 29, the highest law enforcement claim is 80,000. We haven't had it in a couple of years, which is good. We see a positive track record. It's not too wood, and I hope that trend continues. We have one claim still open, which was, from an underwriting perspective, a little concerning, but again, it's not unusual. We have $1.2 million in total paid claims. This is not including law enforcement, every claim that we've had in the last 5 years. It's over 100% loss ratio. However, one of those claims made up almost more than half of that. This was a incident that occurred on 6/27/17. It was a large automobile loss in Huntington. So we consider that as a cat loss, so to speak, one-off. We're not really seeing a frequency issue there. It's more of a severity.
Catastrophic.
Catastrophic. Most insurance carriers do look for the frequency issue instead of severity. So, seeing that is kind of positive for you folks, that one claim is really taken up more than half of your total losses over the last 5 years. And so, in that respect, the auto is not really a huge consideration or a huge issue for travelers. Now, back to the page 28 here, law enforcement liability. We've had to argue this with travelers incessantly. We've been back and forth very, very long time. We've been back and forth over time, but we were able to argue that we're providing with a $1 million occurrence limit and a $2 million aggregate, $50,000 deductible. Your expiring was much higher than that, so the coverage is being reduced either way, whether from unit or from travelers. However, with our local loss control for travelers, we do, fundamentals of law enforcement training seminars with all of our clients. We're in certain regions, like up north, we'll do it for all the cities up there, and now we're going to be able to do it here in Collier County as well, in conjunction with some of our larger accounts. We help trend that going forward and possibly help mitigate future claims and lower some losses going forward. So increasing the culture in that regard. Public entity management liability. So this is going to be your pretty much a D&O claim. Is what that boils down to. $1 million, $2 million, $25,000 deductible. The public entity employment-related practices. This is your EPLI coverage. They may have mentioned that before. Sexual harassment, wrongful termination, failure to promote. Same $1 million limit with a $2 million aggregate and then $25,000. Page 29 is your business auto coverage. $1 million limit, very standard. All of the autos were provided to us by Connie, so if there's any changes there, please let us know. One thing I did see from my analysis is that 24 of the 59 vehicles that we have received are over 10 years old. They still are carrying physical damage coverage on them. There's some ways to cut some costs. So basically 40% of your fleet are over 10 years old. Essentially, we can look at that more fine-tuned, but most of those are private passenger vehicles and your special units. Anything that's a special unit, large vehicles or police, crazy police vehicles with a lot of electronics in them, you may want to take that out of the equation. But for all the other ones, I would recommend removing physical damage from those completely and reducing liability only, because you're really not getting that benefit. Once you have a claim on a 10, 15, 20-year-old vehicle and they say, here's the actual cost value here, and then you're going to have to pay a deductible on top of that, there's really no sense in having that. You're not reaping the full benefit of having that coverage. There's some ways to cut costs. That would remove about $7,000 in premium off of our bottom line. If we were to eliminate most of the physical damage coverage off of those 24 units. Okay? The history also states you do not have a frequency of EPL or D&O claims. Employment practices of directors and officers claims. I would recommend increasing those deductibles as well from 25 to match the law enforcement deductible of 50, at least as an option. You don't have to, it would be an option. That would remove another $5,000 from our bottom line. So there's, approximately 12, we might be able to keep $15,000 more depending on how many autos we take off of the physical damage coverage to reduce that. Back to the auto schedule, if there's any changes again, with any of these autos, trailers, let us know. We can add those, remove those at any point in time. Our policy is composite rated. So what that means is you will have X amount total autos at the first of the year. When you add them throughout the year, there's no charge, it just gets caught at audit. So the variance is caught at audit. A lot of times we see that you don't have a huge jump from X point in one year, let's say 7120 to 7121 when the audit was done. You know, you add a new vehicle, but you remove it all. Very few cities we see add 15, 20 new vehicles in addition to those fleets throughout the year. So essentially that's a wash. Scheduled drivers is on page 34. Again, any changes there, let us know. All of these will be reviewed by travelers, no issues with NVRs with any of these folks. Workers' compensation, this is a difference of what we'll be getting now from Encova. Encova is a great carrier. We're their largest agency partner. We work with them a lot. However, we have the exclusive with travelers where we manage this exclusively, and they are able to offer workers' compensation included in the entire package. Everything we're providing is a traveler's product. 500K, 500K, 500K on the limits. Experience mod is 1.04, which is very good. You're still about 4% higher than the national industry average for your specific code. And we can help with that as well through various trainings. Again, anything that travelers is going to be able to provide from a workers' comp standpoint, it's going to be similar to what Encova can provide. Difference in that is all the other lines of coverage, GL, law, property, auto, all of those have specialized training seminars, loss control provided within locally as well, whereas the other policy does not.
And one of the benefits of just adding another line of insurance is if your work comp is performing well, it can help offset, say, if your auto's bad. It's just really a package discount on the economy scale. Like Chris said, in Encova, we do a lot of business with many of our cities. We'll remain with Encova. And Encova's been such a great corporate citizen. You know what they've done at Shawnee. Absolutely. We're involved in Shawnee, and we understand. I mean, they have the ability to give to the community, to their foundation, that travelers or reserve or community can't do. And we're aware of that. I mean, there's certainly no coverage shortcoming. There is a potential cost benefit for doing business with travelers on board.
Absolutely. Page 38 is the umbrella coverage. One thing to note, to make it transparent, the umbrella is not going over the law. It will go over every other form of liability that we have. One difference in that is we have the ability to put our umbrella coverage over the employer's liability and workers' compensation through any carrier, whether it's Encova or us. We can do that. We schedule it at no additional cost. That is something that I do not believe the former policy had, nor the policy they're proposing would be able to offer as well. So in the event that you have a really tricky employer's liability claim that goes above that standard $500,000 limit, you have an umbrella drop down to cover you to another $3 million in limit. Our umbrella is $3 million on all lines, again, except the law. We're carving out the law. Travelers are not going to offer an umbrella in the law. However, we feel the 1-2 limit that they are offering on the primary law enforcement is adequate due to the fact of the claims analysis we've shown that your average claims are about 30K and most of it's 80. You've never even seen any pierce 6 figures, much less 7. The umbrella will go over your general liability, your auto liability, your employee benefits liability, employer's liability, i.e. workers' comp, public entity management liability, public entity employment practices liability. So it's, a very, very broad coverage and enhancing those forms of limitations as far as coverage is concerned on all liability lines. Cyber liability, we'll go over the cyber liability as well. And we're offering $1 million cyber liability on the $25,000 retention. Fairly common. You folks don't have a huge exposure to any kind of cyber liability. Everybody's had cyber attack, to be honest, whether you know it or not. Most of the time they do what's called ransomware, where they hold yourself accountable and release your files for you to pay a certain amount of money. Sometimes that's in Bitcoin. It can get tricky. Travelers is a global carrier. They have a lot of expertise in this. You can be, cognizant of the fact that they have to back in this regard. I have a CYRN designation, which many other agents in the state do not. It's a cyber liability risk management designation. So I'm pretty in tune with what this is as well. It's a hot button topic in the industry now. You're going to see more and more of it going forward as hackers and criminals become more creative in how they attack businesses, clients, citizens, municipalities. We're seeing a lot of this in bigger cities, Chicago, Houston, they've all had extremely large cyber attacks. And Travelers is again the largest municipality insurer in the country, so they've seen this day in, day out, they know how to handle it. Now, finally, what everybody's concerned about, premium summary, page 42. All in, Travelers, $334,367. That's all taxes and fees, that is everything. That is all one carrier. It can all be placed on a installment plan. We can do quarterly, we can do a 10K, which is 25% down with 90 monthly installments. There is $0 installment charge. There is $0 fees. You will not have to finance this policy to pay it all up front or anything else. City may have enough money to pay $300,000 all up front, and that's fine, but we give you the option to spread it out at no additional cost, should you choose to do that. If you would direct bill, you begin your bills directly from Travelers, you will not owe us anything. Either today or 171. Bills will get sent out 15, 20 days after we bind the policy, and you can go from there. If you have any questions, we have a full team behind us. Former presenter had spoke about HR in-house, how in-house attorneys, in-house law control. He said that nobody else has this. That is absolutely not true. We have that as well, both locally and nationally. Couple other things. I believe that's it for now. Have any questions, any concerns, we're totally open as long as we need to review that. We understand that insurance is not everyone's cup of tea. You didn't wake up wanting to have 2 hours worth of insurance from two largest vendors in the state throwing up on you folks in a city council meeting. However, it is very, very important to the city. I cannot stress enough that this new program that is being offered, he said that they wrote a city right down the road. I'd like to see who that is if we're not aware of it. As of now, we've had any cities of your size insured with this new program. It's very concerning. Travelers are tried and true. We've been here since 1994. We'll be here till the end of time. We do not need any other carriers. We do not want to put you with a carrier that's going to come and go, fly by night in the state, and here 4 or 5 years out. Trident, Arrowhead, One Beacon. Now you have Munich, Zurich, Gladfelter, Euclid. There's a lot of other ones out there, but we are the brand that you know.
You mentioned, I think at the beginning, you had Kanawha County.
You need to speak up.
Sorry. You mentioned at the beginning you had Kanawha County.
We've had Kanawha County Commission since 1994, and you can imagine the serious claims they've had, and with Commissioner Harper's involvement, I mean, that speaks to it. I mean, he's a
We've had competition come and go on it as well.
Yeah, and then other cities that have been in the program for 20+ years that have substantial litigation across not just law enforcement and employment, but parks and rec, planning and zoning, utilities, Beckley, Martinsburg, Morgantown, Fairmont, that are substantial. We're the largest writer, and I would like to go, we're the largest writer in West Virginia, but again, our account retention, we say, hey, we're gonna yank people's premiums up. That's not what we've done. We were asked by the county last year to help some of the smaller cities in Kanawha County that were struggling with the One Beacon program that were gonna get non-renewed. And that was Marquette, Bell, and Chesapeake. And we were able to leverage our relationship with Travelers because we do so much in Kanawha County, we do so much across the state. We've got a voice to get them, and should you have some serious litigation, you go to carrier X that's coming in. Do you have who has leverage with them? They're new to West Virginia. I don't think they're a big player.
I'd like to touch on that as well. We could have access to their program you just did. It's access to a wholesaler called Risk Placement Services. We've done our research. So essentially, your carrier, your agent could not pick up the phone and directly call a Munich representative for any issue, whether it be claims, whether it be hairy litigation or anything like that. They have to go through a middleman who would then pick up the phone. So there's various degrees of communication where it's getting muddy. Having that local, elongated, substantial presence here in West Virginia really, really moves the needle for you folks when it matters. This is not, a load of gravel where you're getting out to the lowest bidder. This is the health and well-being of the city going forward and how we can help increase the safety culture to in turn lower premiums. This is really worst case scenario for you folks. So you can help me with that.
Another question, and obviously, to your all's credit, you watched the presentations, so that we understand apples and oranges. Also in quoting, we essentially had 2 quotes, and on the law enforcement side that was 1-to-1 and then 1-to-1 1 to 3, yours is 1 to 2.
Correct.
Do you offer 1 to 3 just to get a comparison, apples to apples? And for
Travelers will not offer 1 to 3. I can do an X 1 of 2. I mean, I can do an X, but pretty much basically an excess layer from another carrier, similar to how they're bringing in QBE. We could bring in a carrier called Kinsale. We've already provided that option initially. We kind of pulled it out due to the fact that travelers were able to come back and offer a 1-2. Initially, they were only offering 1-1. So we negotiated with travelers, hey, give them another $1 million from the aggregate, and we'll really benefit us in this discount. We could do that. It would probably be another $5,000 to $10,000 if we were to do the X 1-2. So yeah, it's not an issue. We can sell you as much as you want, but it's as much as you need.
One of the things that I've noticed is on the liability or on the vehicle coverage,
Yes.
you all have a $5,000 deductible on comprehensive, $5,000 on collision.
That's correct.
Whereas,
They're offering super low deductibles.
no, they're offering what we've had in the past, $1,000, which is what we've had in our previous policy.
Sure.
So, I mean, I can understand, I can see where you're saying that there's no point in insuring some of our vehicles.
Absolutely.
You all driven the deductible up so high to get the premium down. That it doesn't make sense to provide insurance for them to run the deductible up too high. So what would it cost to have a $1,000 deductible comparable to the other policy?
I'm sure we can get it very close to your premium that you have now. The reason why we're offering increased deductible here is more or less the city decides in your standard. And the loss history you have had over 100% loss ratio, every time you have a ticky-tack bumper, fender bender or something like that, yeah, you're paying out $1,000. But you could possibly, with the funds the city has, pay that under the deductible, not just pay it off completely. So why are you going to take a deductible of $1,000? Because then the carrier's paying more of the claim. How that happens is they're paying you for X, they can call it $4,000 more because you only have a $1,000 deductible. That skews your overall loss ratio in the long run, which affects the loss ratio for the next 5 years. Any little ticky-tack frequency claim, as they mentioned before, frequency is more critical than severity. The $675,000 claim, they're pretty much throwing that out. The little ticky-tack claims, which are paying the low deductible, that increases your loss ratio because the insurance carrier is paying more. Therefore, they're going to come back and hit you in the long run.
But it doesn't seem to, of having frequency and a $1,000 deductible, having adversely impacted the premium that they're charging. So, I mean, that just.
That ties into our whole.
I mean, it gets to the, every incident's $5,000 out of our pocket, and we're gonna have a bunch of little.
Have you paid any in the past out of pocket, like let's say it's $15,000, $2,500? Have you paid those out of pocket in the past?
On our liability, yes, but
I'm
not
not
on
talking about physical damage.
the autos, it's $1,000 deductible.
Right, but let's say that you had any claims where a physical damage claim would say, hey, it's a $2,500 claim or a $2,000 claim, you still made that claim, or do you have the ability to pay that out of pocket and not let it hit the deductible, therefore it doesn't skew your loss ratio?
I mean, theoretically, we could do that if we wanted to.
That would help in the long run. Little ticky-tack claims affect your loss ratio.
But still, the thing of it is, the reality of it is, the insurance company's gonna see every one of those accidents anyway.
They're going to see it if we're paying out.
But our frequency, they're gonna see our frequency, whether we turn them into them or not.
Hey, very true, but let's say one of your guys backs up against the pole, are you going to turn that into the insurance and make a claim against it, or are you just going to say, hey, take it
Well,
out?
no, depends on how much damage it was.
Sure. And again, industry
And the
standard.
headlight anymore is.
$1,200.
Yeah.
$1,000 is low. I'll just, that, in the industry right now, for municipalities of your size, $1,000 is not the same.
Well,
Nor is it on the property, they can increase your property as well.
but
So that's.
as I talked to you all earlier, the easier it is for us to compare apples and apples, the easier it is for us to make a decision.
We understand apples to apples, and, we like that terminology, we hate it at the same time, because not all apples are the same. Sometimes you're not an apple at all, maybe you're a vegetable, maybe you're a ribeye, when you're comparing against an apple.
He's the king of analogies, I think. I've heard a few.
And what it boils down to is Travelers is it's a brand name. You may not know us, but you know Travelers. We're the largest writer of public entities in the entire country. Nobody's ever heard of us in care. It's concerning. It's just concerning. We could have accessed them too, but we didn't, because we know that we're trying to provide the best value and the best holistic set of services, knowledge, and expertise to the city in conjunction with all the other accounts that we write locally or nationally.
I think also just know that your defense council's gonna be, you mentioned that you work with Tim Mayo over at Clarendon's Law. We have full entire planning, we got Mayo in mind, folks that have been trying cases in Kanawha County for 20 years. Not sure who your return is gonna be, which claim adjuster you were gonna deal with. And again, and I understand you all gotta make a financial decision, got that all day long. We're just really the known versus unknown, the services that we can deliver to help make you a safer risk. And that's the traveler's value proposition. Coming off being non-renewed, if I want Beacon to get travelers we can quote you, was really a pretty monumental task, because we always got to protect the integrity of the program, and know your one big claim wasn't involved off. It's still something that affects our profitability. And with everything with Kanawha County as we're growing, by July 1, we'll probably pick up 5 or 6 accounts that are 4 already. Yeah, 4 already. That's that were former One Beacons, and to my knowledge, well, actually I know for a fact this program is not insuring one right now. They may have picked up
Town of Worthington or something, or some.
Glasgow or family or Pratt, or realistically, I know they're not working. I know they're not working on the city Nitro. I know they're not working on South Charleston. But if you have any further questions, we're happy to.
If I may add 40 questions, this is the same thing here. Again, the key analogy sent today. Do you buy the cheapest tires in your car? Do you buy the cheapest of anything? Or do you buy a brand name knowing that it's going to provide you with peace of mind that it's a program you can trust? That's what it really goes down to. I used the analogy with Mayor yesterday. Some people might like this, people might not, but you buy one ply toilet paper, it's going to have covered gaps and holes all in it. Or you want to buy something that is, cottonelle, something tried and true. It's really what it goes down to. Again, our program has been there, want to be here, not going anywhere. Tried and true, we're a brand you can trust, largest provider of municipality insurance in the South country.
Travelers, I know it is highly rated. Is it A plus? What?
It's A++. I trade FSC 15. That's the largest.
A lot of carriers are A rated, A minus rated. Are they, is Munich, American Family Home, or whatever they're providing you? Actually, A plus, sure they are. Commercial's not going to work with an A minus, or A less than A rated carrier, nor with. However, are they admitted to work in the state? Are they subject to the West Virginia Guarantee Fund Act? That is something, it might be an A plus, A minus, A plus, whatever might be carriers, but are they subject to business in West Virginia? Are they admitted or non-admitted? If we find out, it's not good for you folks. We're happy to do a coverage analysis comparison to bother that. From what we've seen, the quotes are pretty easy. They're not in depth. You want detail in your insurance.
Further questions?
Some of them answered in the presentation based on what they presented.
And I know you mentioned, watching on Christmas mode, the YouTube meeting,
Which is smart.
well, yeah. No.
I hope they watch us.
Yeah.
You come back today, I mean, we're not saying anything.
Yeah, there may be a chance for person dialogue, and what we welcome is for both agents to come in, we talk about your program. It's kind of an unfair advantage for us, because we know it inside and out, versus we do really, they don't really know, there's unanswered questions.
Again, it has to be access to the wholesaler. They don't agree.
Make sure, as far as the nuts and bolts, to be honest, insurance company forms that are going to insure the city of Dunbar, the coverage is going to be pretty common. It's all contract based, it's just when you get into claims handling, that's really the most important thing. And the value proposition, you keep summing all up. I'm sure we're not the cheapest, but yeah, we believe we're the best. If there is going to be some dialogue, I know Christmas Day, I've actually got to go badly after this. Well, I don't really know, I think he's going to get, somebody suggests Taco Bell for $3. But yeah, it works. And again, we appreciate your time. That's a big decision. And I know you've been with them for a long time. Like I said, I started with commercial in '97, started working together in Buckley then. We worked together for a number of years. But then in 2008, I got tired of bringing in an American Home family, bringing in a Trident, and I just wanted to get against this account, and I just had no success.
Consistency is key.
Yeah, and that's why I wasn't involved. We hang on to what we have. Again, 96% client retention is unheard of. Despite what you may have about the city of Louisville. You can call the city of Louisville right now.
We're the ones that took that.
Yeah, I took it from them, and
It was not $80,000 increase.
yeah. But again, we don't want to belabor. Sure partners have a long relationship with Janet's wonderful, but if we do feel our program is superior, again, we appreciate your time. Got any questions?
Any further questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you both for your time, really appreciate it.
Let me cool it off a little bit.
Hey, you want a bulldog in your corner, that's what it was now. You want a bulldog in your corner, you want somebody here who's local, that's going to know the claims, know the environment, all that, it comes all covered by the travelers.
Exactly. We're both passionate about what we do. Like Chris says, if you want someone in your fossil and really does get nasty in the event of serious claims, we're there for you. That's it. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
We're around.
Yeah.
Almost. You got this.
We've,
Thanks, bye-bye.
We've heard the proposals of, commercial insurance and travelers insurance. Is there, any clarifications that we want from, either party prior to going into evaluation and determination as to how we're going to proceed?
I think both parties between your portfolio and presentation, I think you've answered all the questions. It's just a matter of us actually on our side. They both agree to answer anything.
Yes.
They're fairly close. Again, there's slight difference in the law enforcement, total cumulative. It's a difference with deductibles and the vehicles.
I mean, the deductibles on the vehicles is going to skew the premium substantially. You know, when you look at, you know, it's, I mean, if we would take I'm just saying this on the top of my head, but if we would increase the deductible on what was proposed by commercial to $5,000 deductible on our vehicles, we probably would knock substantially more money off of what they're proposing is. I mean, we all know from personal insurance, you know, if you go from a $500 deductible to $1,000 to $2,000, so it makes substantial difference in how much your premium is per year. When you look at the list of the number of vehicles that we have that we're insuring, I mean, it would be a substantial. So, are there any concerns that you all have about, other than price, about any of the from either of the proposals?
So I think as we're looking at the presentation for both, I think on the commercial one, this is just me, but it would be wise for us to consider the buy up on the police side.
I mean, that's $4,500
Yeah,
or whatever.
it's 65, but it's still, you know,
It goes from 31 to
38 something, and total,
35,958.
total we rolled over just slightly over 303, and theirs is 334 less, but that's just, if we're comparing, because we have to choose one or the other from commercial. So if we're going to compare one commercials to two travelers, I would just recommend that one as far as just for, because the whole environment, the legal environment, law enforcement is, it's not going to get better.
And as As travelers indicated, our history in litigation has not been in the $1 million range. And that's the reason they put it to the $1 million limit. They gave an alternate to go to 35,958 to take it to a $3 million, 1,000,000, 3 million with a $50,000 deductible on the annual aggregate. So, I mean, it's $4,300. It's not a deal breaker. And it's, I think it's what everybody else has said, based on the current climate, we can only anticipate that we're going to have more potential liability cases filed. I hope that's not the case, because they're becoming more and more proactive with the department about those issues, and we're going to be proposing some more changes to policy that I think we need to have a safety committee meeting soon to get those ready to be prepared to send to council.
On that, there were two differences. I'm in commercial now, and their pages aren't numbered, but it's the marketing summary. It gives the 1-to-1, and then it says we can buy it for 1-to-3, and it mentions that we moved to 38, 116.84, which is a $6,500 increase. Then over on that law enforcement liability quote, it shows 1-to-1 and 1-to-3, and theirs showed 35,958. So I'm not sure which of those two numbers. It's about a $2,000 difference, but I'm not sure which one of those is the accurate quote.
I think that, let me go back to that page.
Was it 33?
Yeah, that was,
Pages and grant.
That's the,
they're not numbered, that's the
Fine.
Yeah, and then Connie, I've got a couple as well. There's another one for 33. So
yeah, that's, I think that's total package, right?
Okay,
You know what I'm saying?
correct, but then with the subpart for police, it's 33 here, it's 31 another, and 38 in another one. So I'm not sure which. Again, those are all.
I think the difference may be with the taxes and fees and so forth, and once you add it on to them.
It's most likely to be accurate, be 33 and 38 instead of 31, 35.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it's not going to, it's only going to increase the total bottom line by the same.
Correct. So I'm just making sure I'm clear on
It's on this picture here.
Right.
Next page.
Yeah, the surprising workman's comp went down. Yeah, it was 96,000 last year. This year it's 83. I was surprised at that. It really was. But it really went up last year.
Well, we were caught in that 5-year cycle, and then one of those
Dropped off.
dropped off, which got us back, and then we had
Yep.
a good performance year, which gave us a plus after all that.
So it's about, if you do the buy up on commercial, it's going to be roughly 30,000 or 10% between the two. About 30,000 more for travelers than commercial, equal to about 10% of the cost more. But however, the lower bid actually has more coverage on automobiles and police.
That's where
So when it comes back, the main, and then the flip side is which carrier are we more comfortable with as far as, well, two things. Carrier being the American Home versus travelers, and then also local agency you have to deal with as well. I mean, that's a reality as well. In anything, when you buy insurance, you have to deal with humans, so those are factors in our mind as well. So the human factor, the two different companies, and then the price, the 10% difference in price, and then a slight variance in coverage on automobiles and police.
The reality of it is, I mean, we've had incredible response from commercial insurance on everything that we've ever done. I don't know the single thing that we've struggled with or fought with them about on anything. Now, we were hoping to get a proposal from them sooner than what we did. But there again, they were reaching out, trying to find all the various options they could to try to find somebody to fit in the hole after one beacon dropped out. Travelers, I guess, is one great big umbrella. So, you know, they're not having to search the market for various carriers for different things, which is, I mean, maybe a positive for them. But there again, I think I asked them to quote us based not on their perception of our value of properties, but of the assessment that we have in our current policies, so that we'd be looking at apples and apples. And, you know, and I think that's made it harder to, when they gave an original proposal, which was 442,000, and then they adjusted that down after meeting with Connie and I down to 335. But, you know, I just felt like they just, in some ways, they weren't really listening when I was saying we want quotas at the levels of insurance that we have, and then if we want to go up, then propose going up. And it just didn't seem to sink in.
I do know the one Deacon is also, is Georgia based, so I always had to deal, but, you know, you get a hold of commercial first, and then they contact us with the other one from there, you know, so.
But the commercial presentation, they made a few statements that they contradicted that weren't true. Like the ones that had lawyers that looked at your corporation and everything. And there was something else. I forgot what it was.
Sexual harassment.
Yeah. That's another thing, the age is yes.
18-year-olds.
They made that statement, and that wasn't true either.
Well, they said that
They both.
both of them had the same,
They both think so.
so they both
Yeah.
made the same statement, that some policies, they haven't seen travelers. They don't, I mean,
That was a little bit of tomato.
Yeah.
Both of them are going to cover, just different terminology and how it's going
Yeah,
to.
it was
Travelers is a national company, so I mean, you know, they're everywhere, commercial's not. But when it's on 24/7, so when you're gonna talk to somebody. And they, I mean, I've never been dissatisfied with them at all.
And like the mayor said too, the city's had it for years and years, never had a problem with them.
I just wrote out quickly a grid for my mind. You think how you want to, but I put down coverage, cost, company, and agency, the four factors where there's variance, otherwise they're the same. Coverage, if you compare the two, they're close, but commercial has 1,000 deductible versus 5 on the vehicles, and with the buy up, it would be 1 to 3 on the police versus 1 to 2. So commercial have, just in my understanding of it, would an edge cost. Commercial, even with buy-up, would be 10% difference at less, at about 30,000 and 10% company, that's a little harder because yes, Travelers as a company, yes, is global and nationwide. However, the other one is using Encova for workers' comp, and it's kind of hard to beat Encova right now as well, the reputation. So it's not as, I mean, that's a little harder to sort out in my mind, because yes, Travelers is a wonderful company. We don't know as much about the American, but Encova is in that package as well. And, you know, Encova has such a record with not only our city, but our state and everybody. And then the last one would be agency, because the mayor and clerk have to work continually with the agency. And so I will publicly state that, but I had just personal opinion, in my mind, as I'm rushing through based on connection. I knew neither of the four people until today. But in my mind, I'm developing, thinking through this list as far as agency connection, when you pick up the phone and call, those kind of things. I don't know how you all make decisions, but.
I agree. To me, it makes a world of difference.
Any other discussion, comments, concerns, anything you think we need clarification on?
Now we're gonna make a decision on what share we are then, right now.
Well,
Kind of need to.
we have to, because July 1st, our insurance can't.
They've been around here for years and years. A lot of people use them.
So if you put form of motion, I'll make a motion. Make a motion that, we switch our carrier for 2020-21 year with first reinsurance.
I'll second.
Let me ask a clarification question though. Is that with policy A or B? Because they gave us two options.
Right. It gives the buy-up option.
Yeah.
Well, let's take the initial
Okay.
motion, and then we can deal with the.
Right.
And we'll deal with that later.
Okay.
There's been a motion by Councilman Hughes to approve or select commercial insurance as the insurance provider to their various carriers for the 2021 fiscal year. Seconded by Councilman Fleshman. Any further questions, comments, or concerns? Being none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Abstentions, none.
We don't need a roll call or.
I can do this. Since it's official business. I mean,
Just normal business.
okay.
Okay,
Okay.
I think there was a, make sure consideration for, further discussion relative to, coverage proposed by commercial insurance.
If you want to carry that one, we need to clarify also, do we want proposal 1 or proposal 2 that add the increase in police?
You have it written down in front of you, good, make a proposal.
I assume that we go with the buy up on the police, on the QBE section of the insurance, which will move from 1 million to 1 million, 1 million increase in 1 million aggregate to 1 million, 3 million aggregate.
And that was how much, $4,300?
It'd be approximately 45
$45 a year.
extra. know that is more money that still is below the other budget. So these are risky times in that field.
So you do.
I'll second that.
To buy all the QBE section.
There's been a motion by Councilman Hudson, seconded by Councilman Hughes, to accept the proposal of commercial insurance to increase the liability coverage from 1 million per occurrence with an annual $1 million aggregate with $50,000 deductible to $1 million occurrence with a $3 million annual aggregate with $50,000 deductible with an increase of premium as reflected on the charts of proposal, which will be roughly $4,300. Motion was seconded, Mr. Hughes. Is there any further discussion or comment? Being none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No. Abstentions? None. Motion carries. If there's no further business, or does anybody else want to bring it? Yes, sir.
Representative, just a couple minutes to share some information. No decision, just some information I have. I was asked at our last council meeting to look into the eligibility of a couple candidates in our city. I did look into it. I just want to share the information I got. I know there's several other people who got some information. But I was asked that there was a couple candidates under Ward 1. There was a candidate that didn't own property. Ward 2, there was a candidate probably living in Ward 3. And so I was asked who oversees this. I looked into our charter book. He gives some vague explanation that the city clerk is over our elections, does not go into details of how that's ciphered out, but I called the Secretary of State's office. So I asked the Secretary of State about Ward 1 candidate that did not own property. The state code said that they need to be an eligible voter. Code doesn't say anything about owning property. I asked, but the end was that I need to see our city attorney. So I asked the second question, which code would overrule the other code? Would it be the city code or the state code? Again, she told me, she put me on hold when she was consulting with someone else. Again, she come back and said, I need to see the city attorney. I asked the second question. There's a candidate living, we believe, in Ward 2, or Ward 3 that's running in Ward 2. State code, she said, after consulting, says the candidate must live in Ward where when elected. And since he's just a candidate, he would be eligible. Now, I know that other people have talked to the Secretary of State, and they've got a different answer. So, again, she told me, you need to consult with your city attorney. The conclusion and what that was, I wasn't getting good information from the Secretary of State. So I called Steve Swisher and asked him. He made it real clear, state code overrides city code where there's a conflict. As far as the eligibility of the candidate in Ward 1 not owning property, state code says he just has to be an eligible voter, so he's probably eligible. The second one, the candidate living in Ward 3, running in Ward 2, he didn't have a clear answer on it yet, so I don't have a clear answer on that. Some of the rest of you may have. Bottom line that I found out that Ward 1 candidate is most likely eligible. Ward 2 candidate stated that he's living in his basement in his other the ward that he's running in, Ward 2. I don't know if we can prove that wrong or right. And third thing, state code will override city code. Never really got cleared up to me. You were given a complaint form, if somebody wanted to fill that out, might get a clearer answer, but I just want to share that the findings that I had, it's not been cleared. I think it probably cleared it up for the candidate in Ward 1. Candidate that's running in Ward 2, that's living in Ward 3 possibly, it's still kind of vague to me, but if anybody else wants to comment, feel free to. I just want to share what I think.
Okay, the information I got from the Secretary of State's office was
different
than the information you got from the Secretary of State's office. The person that I talked to said that if the person who in Ward 2 did not physically reside at the residence in Ward 2 at the time that they certified on the document when they registered to vote, which was where there's a certification that says, I do hereby certify that I live or eligible for office in as such, which means you'd have to be a resident of, or she would have to be a resident of the second ward. Now, in order to proceed with that, they said there is no complaint form to fill. The parties that are interested in contesting it would have to have an attorney or on their own file a writ of mandamus with the circuit court to deal with it. So that was the information that I got, which is totally different from the information that you got.
Yes.
Now, I think there were telephone calls made early on, which basically, stated the same thing that the answer that you got from that. I think that was from local election officials and so forth, that if they reside there at the time of the election, they were okay. So, there again, it just depends on to what extent an individual wants to pursue this with going with a filing a writ of mandamus in certain court to have that person removed from the ballot if in fact they were not residing at that location at the time that they certified that they were living in. So
I asked the Secretary of State, was talking to the lady up there, and I said, I don't quite understand what explained that they had to be living when elected. I said, how could they be a candidate if they're not in that ward? How could they be a candidate for that ward? And she didn't have an explanation. She told me, so the city attorney. I didn't get an answer from Steve on that. I don't know if you did or not, but that was what.
yeah, he indicated that, that we would have to get a third party attorney if the city wanted to pursue it, the city would need to get a third party attorney to handle it. Or the individual could pursue it.
I just wanted to give the information I found. I was asked to do that, and I did. I want to share the information that's still not clear, but it's out there. That's all I have.
Anything else? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, for the good of the order, if there's no other city business, I'll move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second. So moved.
Where you going?
You'll be
Hey,
y'all want me to call Trevor while we're on?